Welcome to the Basics for Virtual Assistants podcast, your go-to destination for all things virtual assistant. I'm your host, Pol, and just 4 short years ago, I took that leap into the world of virtual assistants, and I've never looked back. Now it's my turn to help you take the same exciting path. Are you wanting to become a VA but no idea where to start, lost with how to price yourself or set yourself up for success? Well, look no further. As we explore this world together, I'll be sharing my experiences, insights, and all the valuable lessons I've learned along the way. So, get ready to explore the world of virtual assistants, uncover its limitless potential, and let me guide you on the path to becoming a successful virtual assistant. Your transformation into a skilled VA starts right here, right now.
Hi guys, welcome to this week's episode. I'm super excited to have the wonderful Mel on. We have recorded before, but we had a little bit of difficulty, so we are back again. And Mel is the founder of The Lifestyle VA, which is a VA agency and does many other amazing things, which we will hear from her. But we're going to start by asking Mel to share with us her virtual assistant story.
Oh, hello, and thank you for having me. It's lovely to be back. I know technical problems, we've all had them as podcast hosts, so don't worry. Like I said, maybe we'll just share something more profound this time around. But thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
And I will try and give you a brief of the journey. I've had a very colourful background, done lots of different things before I settled into becoming a VA. Long story short, I was in the music industry for about 10-15 years and doing sort of marketing, branding, artist management. And anytime I lost a job, because I started as PA, EA, I would always go back out into sort of some kind of temping or EA work because I'm just an organisational nerd and it was really easy and it was really good money to me. So when I basically I'm all the cliches, right? I had a massive health event about 10 years ago where I ended up having open abdomen surgery to remove my spleen. And I was still in the music industry, everything came crashing down. And I was like, what is life about? So I went back into a job, just, PA, EA job. Ended up staying there for 5 years. It was such a lovely job and business and company to work for. But as times changed, my admin department that I was running, a team of 5, just got slowly squeezed. And you know what it's like with corporate. They give you more work to do and no more cash. Nothing increases from your workload. So I was heading back into burnout. And after having that health event, I promised to God I would never go down that route again, and I could feel it coming. So I was like, right, ripcord, let me have a sabbatical. And they gave me a sabbatical, and I took myself off to Southeast Asia like a 37-year-old cliche with a backpack. And I started meeting all of these incredible digital nomads, and it sort of became apparent there was a whole world of like virtual assisting that had been going on all this time that I didn't know that I had the option to even do. People were saying to me, why are you working for one person at a desk, 9 to 5, grinding it out when you can choose your clients? And I was like, this sounds too good to be true. So that's how it started on sabbatical. And I kind of was meant to go for a few months and come back, and I didn't. I quit the job while I was over there, quit my flat, quit my London life, and just decided to stay in Bali while I figured this out because the overheads were so low. It was a great place to start a business. And I was, earning £15 an hour when I started because I just didn't know any better. And somehow you've got to get experience. And so you just kind of, throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Went through all of the bad clients because you just say yes a lot more than you realise you have agency and permission to say no to the ones where, they've got champagne dreams and beer budgets and they're micromanaging the crap out of you. You're like, okay, I'll take it. I'll take the client.
Yes, I'll do it, whatever. I just want the client.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. You're like, cash in the bank. Yes, please. So, and over time you kind of learn that's not quite the way to go. And so after a year away, I came back to London and it'd grown to a point where I was capped on hours. I just didn't have any more time to be working. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. And someone said, you can have an associate VA. And I was like, what now? A what?
A what?
And I was like, I can subcontract work out. Amazing. So I made all the mistakes with that too. I hired a friend, shouldn't have done that. So I learned along the way, and within 12 to 18 months, I'd started building a small team to help with the workload, because the worst thing that you want to do is see that there are client leads coming in that you can't serve. So for me, I've been in sort of managerial positions before, so it wasn't such an alien concept, but it was a giant learning curve to have a team and to be responsible for other people whilst running the business, whilst still being a VA. And fast forward 5 years later, it's just wild to me that what I'm now have in terms of an agency with clients and a team that I basically work part-time in. And that's wild when I think back to sort of starting at £15 an hour with no clue, just a tenacity to get it right and never go back to corporate and never burn out again and be able to take care of my health. And now I'm sitting here with an agency, and I now coach as well, because obviously that naturally organically happens. So I've got a coaching business, a mastermind, and the agency, and somehow there's enough hours in the week for all of it, and I still probably don't work full time. So it's been a wild ride.
Absolutely. And I think, like, no matter what stage of being a VA you are, you just gain this freedom as you go. Like, even in the beginning when you're like hustling to get clients and you're working like crazy to like build your business, you still have more freedom than when you're working for someone else in whatever position you're working in. Like, you might not have more hours per se, but you definitely have this freedom to go, okay, well, I'm going to work 10 hours, but I'm going to take a 2-hour break in the middle of the day, and I'm going to work till, 7 o'clock instead. Like, that freedom that comes with every stage of being a virtual assistant is just, it's amazing. It's one of the things that I love the most. Like, that freedom to just do what you want with the hours you do have.
Yeah, there's no one breathing down your neck, only you. I think you've still got to be quite driven to make it work, because you are, in the first part of it, I felt quite alone in doing it. I didn't even realise there were coaches and mentors. I don't think I got a coach until I was about 18 months in. I could feel this tipping point and I wanted to get it right. So I was like, right, let me try and find a coach who can help me build this into some sort of scalable and sustainable structure. But it also really helped just finding other women like me who were doing the same thing, and you could have a good old chat and a rant and help and share the way it was working for you and what did work and what didn't work. So the community side of it was so friendly. Coming from corporate, where people are like, what do you want? Why are you asking? What do you want? Very suspicious, to a whole industry that was full of people who were like, oh, yay, someone doing the same thing as me. Of course I'll help. What do you need? And I was so blown away by how positive and friendly everyone is in the community as well. Yes,
that lack of competition, I think, like, there's not that same competition that you get in corporate. Like, with other VAs, I think all VAs figure out pretty quickly that, like, there's more than enough work for everybody. And so there's that, like,
definitely.
Oh, you want to learn how to do this? Sure, here's all of my tips on how to do it. And I feel like that is, finding your community is so important when you're starting out as a VA. It can be so lonely. I remember when I first started out, I was like a stay-at-home mum, and so I didn't have any adults I was really talking to in my day-to-day life, and then I wasn't going to work, and I was so lonely. And I was the same. I think I was about 18 months in, and I found a Facebook group for virtual assistants, and I was in there, and I was like, oh my God, other people who get it, they understand. It was, definitely a game changer, finding my community and finding those people to, like, connect with. Yes. Now, before, when you were sharing your story with us, you were talking about how you made all of those mistakes in the beginning, and you had all of those clients that I think every new VA gets eventually. But I would love to talk a little bit about client red flags and, like, how to pick them up, how to manage them, what to do when you miss them in the first place. So I think that would be a really good,
Where do you want me to start? I mean, I don't think there's a perfect way to start. The one thing I want to say is I think you need to make the mistakes. I think you kind of need to be prepared to fall on your face and get back up again, because you ultimately, the next time you fall down because you've made a mistake, your face doesn't quite hit the floor. You get a little bit better at making a mistake and getting back up from it quicker. You have to build almost that mistake learning resilience pattern. So you kind of can't escape having some bad clients, because they just shine a light on what you don't want. So you go into, like, the next discovery call being more discerning about, a lot of times what I found to happen is I'd be on calls with people and I would have this feeling, because I'm a generator in human design, so my body tells me a lot, and I didn't realize that for a long time in corporate, because you don't get choices, you just get given, and you kind of shove that feeling down of like, oh, I'm not sure about this. You don't have a choice, you just crack on. And so over time that intuition just gets a bit dampened down. But when you come into realizing that the red flag client you've just worked for, who is saying she wants all these things, she wants this unicorn VA who's social media this and admin that and run my launch schedule and run, you go, yeah, okay, and I'll run your retreats as well. Sure, I'll do event management, because you just want to take the client. You start to realize that actually that feeling, that churning in your belly as you're going, oh God, she wants everything, is a reason to go, that's probably not all within my scope or my skills. And what would happen if I said, I can do this bit, that bit, but not those bits, because I just honestly going to be honest, I'm not an expert in those. And the client goes, oh, okay, great, that's fine, I can find someone else to do those other bits. But it's the fact that we just say yes a lot. We don't trust that. There's a feeling in our body or brain going, I'm not sure I can do that. Sure, there is a huge learning curve. Google and YouTube will be your best friends. And because there's so much that you're going to be like, okay, so I know ClickUp, but I don't know Notion or whatever. Google, find it out,
Yes.
But I think you've just got to pay attention to the clients who are trying to, the big one is negotiating your hourly rate. You've told them what it is, or they've seen it before the call, and they still get on the phone call and they try to negotiate it down. That's a big red flag. You wouldn't do that with a solicitor or a dentist. So why aren't you respecting my prices and my packages and my expertise enough that you're trying to negotiate it down? So that's always a watch for that one, because I think when they start like that, they don't change. They will always then present other problems throughout.
Absolutely. Definitely. And before you just said, I just lost it. You said, being able to say to a client that you can only do certain tasks. That definitely comes, I think, with experience, but I wish more VAs knew that was an option. Like, you can say to a potential client, I can't do all of this work. Like, it's not something I have the ability to do, but I will do these tasks. And 9 times out of the 10, like you said, the client is more than happy to go ahead with working with you. And lots of businesses now hire more than one VA. Like, it's not this big thing where they're like, you must do all of them. But I think for new VAs, understanding that that's an option is so important.
Yeah. And if you look at it from the client perspective, they can only respect you more for being honest rather than being their yes person. Do you know what I mean? Because the important thing to look at the relationship is it's not hierarchical. This is really important. It's not hierarchical like a corporate boss and an employee. You're now a service provider to a business owner. So you are actually lateral. If you can't see my hands, I'm doing hands together like lateral.
Yes.
You are very much on the same level. And this is also this comes with confidence. I'm not going to say this is baked in from day one, this knowing and this ability to see yourself as an equal to your client. But they have a business, you have a business. You are a service provider on the same level. You just have an expertise and a different skill set that they don't have and they need. So it's... You have the ability to say, I'm not a jack of all trades, and I'm proud of that, and I'll always be honest and tell you where the edge of my skill set is. And it's this: I don't do social media. I could try, but I would waste your time. I'd burn through your hours. Honestly, you're better off letting me find you someone who's really good. And what's a client going to turn around and say to that? Oh yeah, maybe I don't want to hire you. They're seeing your honesty and integrity on full display, and it often gets more of a positive feedback that, I really respect that, thank you, and so it starts to build trust from day one. So don't be afraid of saying, I don't want to be a unicorn VA.
Yes. And everybody starts off in the beginning thinking that like they can do everything. It is so important to like narrow in and like specialize, do the things you love, do the things you're good at, chuck everything out the back door. Like, you don't have to do everything just because you are a VA. And I think when I first started, I thought that like everything client asked for, I just had to do. And it took me that, like you said, that time and that confidence to build that. But it is important to know that like you have choices. It's your business. Do what you want to do. Yeah,
and it might take you a few clients to figure that out, and that's okay. It's just part of the learning curve. It's like trying all the stuff and figuring out. Like you might do stuff that you go, I didn't know I could do this and I love it. Great. But you also get to decide as you go. And like each new client's a fresh start, because you don't have to then have the same. People aren't watching your website or your service guide that intensely. So if you suddenly take, like, for instance, social media off the table and you bring in a new client, they didn't even know that was there or existed. So each client is a fresh start, as it were. Yes. You can adjust your packages every time you hire someone. So
yes, and I feel like it's the same with prices. Like, if you are going along and you all of a sudden realize I am undercharging majorly, you can just change your prices with the next client, and then again with the one after that. Like, you know, you might start off on like you said, 15, and then you go, oh, that's really not working for me, I'm going to jump it up. And that person has no idea. Like, honestly, you can, you know, change and adjust as you and your business grow. I think that is, you know, something that can be difficult to hear, because I know for me, when I was like stuck in that rut and I was like, I'm here forever. And then someone was like, just change your prices. And I was like, well, why didn't I think of that? You know, like, dang it.
Yeah. I think we just get stuck in this trap of, well, I don't know anything. And VAs to me are the most resourceful people I know, because there are a bunch of skills from your past jobs or experience that you actually bring forward. So you're not this kind of baby newbie. You have a bunch of life skills and experience that you actually can translate into being a VA, but you almost kind of go into this new bubble of, well, running a business is new. What do I know? And you forget you have an absolute stack of experience. So don't be, don't do yourself down.
Yes. I actually, in another episode, I was just saying that, like, we need to consider skills as a broader picture rather than like, oh, I can do this exact task. Your skills are what you learnt in school, what you learnt in your previous jobs, you know, what you learnt from hobbies. Like, I know a heap of people who learnt how to edit Instagram reels because they like making Instagram reels for their personal Instagram. Yeah. You know, like, that's not a formal little, I can't write that on my resume, but as a VA, I can say, I can make reels, I'm real good at it. I mean, you know, and I think, like, we forget sometimes that skills aren't just courses we've done and pieces of paper we have. Like, skills come from lots of places.
Oh, you don't need a certification or a qualification to do this. I see so many women struggle with that, or if they're moving into being an OBM, for instance, they feel like they need a certification. In controversial opinion, but I just don't believe you do. I've seen so many people naturally walk into strategy and become an OBM, and they don't need a certification, and other people not quite ready but feeling like that is going to give them the confidence boost, but it's someone else has decided that's what level you need to pass. But make it on your own way, trust me, you can still do it.
Yes, absolutely. And you can learn and grow as you go. Like, we don't all start out as the perfect VA from day dot. Like, I guarantee you, my very first client spent months going, oh my gosh, what have I done, as we learnt that process together. She's probably, I swear she would have been like, I made a mistake, a huge one, because I would be like, I'm not sure about this. Like, can you give me some guidance? And she'd be like, okay. You know, it takes time. You don't just dive in and know everything from day dot.
No. And I think how many times I think about my very basic contract that I started with, because I was like, oh, what do I do? I need to get a contract from somewhere. And I think about how I have an advantage because I'm ex-legal secretary as well. And one of my first bosses made me read contracts. I was like, why? He's like, you should understand what people are signing. And I'm like, okay. So I'm a bit of a contract nerd. So when I got the first one, I think about the one I have now. Every single mistake that I've made, I've kind of had someone draw up a different clause or expand the clause so that my bum is like ironclad all the way around.
Yes.
So every time I think about, like, if they haven't paid, what's the penalty? Right, 7-day down tools if you haven't paid 7 days later after your invoice. Right, and it's there, you know, and then you learn how to pull that out into a welcome guide, because let's face it, clients don't really read contracts. They just go pounds per hour, scope of work, signed. Don't read the rest of it. So just pull out your key things, your turnaround times. What happens if an invoice is late? To welcome guide. Actually, I can give your audience my template for that, because I think it's a good part of the onboarding process to just be like, this is what you signed. Just a reminder. Let's pull out the key bits about what we expect from one another.
Yes.
Smooth the sailing.
Here is the expectations. Please make sure you are very aware of these very important sections of the contract that you didn't read. Yes, I'd love that. We will put the link in the description of the podcast so you can grab that. But Now, we got very off track from boundaries, but
So did.
I know, but I think that's the best way to do it though. With boundaries, I would love to talk about how to set boundaries once you've already started with the client. So you've started with the client, you realize that you don't have all of the boundaries you would love to have in place. How to go about like doing that in a respectful way.
Yeah, I think boundaries show up in so many different ways from, you wanting to, a lot of VAs are parents, so they sort of work probably 9 a.m. until 2 or 3 p.m. and then that's it. And it's outlining those things really clearly in your expectations with the clients from the beginning, but it's also backing that up in your contract, backing that up in your welcome pack. But also, you also have to train the client a little bit as well. So you've got to hold your own boundaries. So if they are sending you 7, 8, 9 p.m., text messages, you don't need to respond. Because if you do, you are then setting the precedent for that behaviour to continue, and you'll wonder why you get burnt out. So the response time that you set in the beginning is what they'll come to expect from you. So I always say we're not saving lives. Nothing, one of the number one questions from clients is how does this work? As in, what does this look like on a daily basis? So if you can give them a picture of, I always say to my clients, we say in contract and welcome guide, we have a 24-hour turnaround time. We know that we're in your inbox 1 to 3 times a day. So you're always going to get it done that day, if not that morning. And if we happen to be online doing our time blocking for you at that point and you send an email, it will be answered. But if you continue to check your inbox 5 times a day and respond every time that client comes back to you, you're then setting the hyper response precedent. And you cannot build a business around responding to every single client like that.
No. So
it's down to you to set the boundaries and, time block or whatever works for you, but also communicating with them realistic response times. I always say to my clients, we're really good at getting back to you and getting stuff done in the same day, unless it's a massive project. Unless you're dropping that massive project at 4:30 or 4:45, on Friday, it's probably not going to get done in 15 minutes. We're going to prioritize it the next day, and we're going to contact you and say, right, the things I was working on are these 3 things. This seems to be a priority, this new task. Where would you like me to reprioritize? Is it top of the thing? Would you want me to get the other thing I was doing done? It's all about that clear communication with them.
Yes.
Holding boundaries. Also, things like the tools that you use to communicate with them. Don't use your personal, WhatsApp or text messages.
No.
Put them inside Slack or
Yes.
Voxer, because then you can turn that off so that when you're, going into your own personal messaging app to text your friends, you don't have that sort of eyeball twitching because you can see a client message.
Yes, you're not there
else.
I can't see it. I didn't see that message from my client. Yes.
As a very type A person who hates that red dot notification, that would blow my brain every day. It's too much to have that close to my personal stuff.
I definitely made that mistake in the beginning. I gave out my personal phone number and I very quickly was like, this is not what we're doing. Backtrack. So yes, it's finding that. I love Slack. Do you love Slack? I find Slack to be great.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really helpful to organise everything.
And you can just drop so much in there too, like videos and voice memos. Yeah.
It's a great tool for sure for business.
Yes.
What else are boundaries? Scope of work. Like we said earlier about really laying it out in the contract. But if you have the ability to use something like a Dubsado where you can put proposal, then contract, then invoice all together, in that proposal, or what I tend to do is after a discovery call, I will write them a message to say, I'm so excited to work with you, and lay out in 6 to 10 bullet points the key things that we're going to work together on. And then they go, okay, great, that's fine. Because you're very clearly laying out expectations. And then if you build that into the contract or your welcome guide or anywhere that scope of work is visible, it kind of stops those questions. Are you able to, do you know how to, the ones that, those little, they come up as micro questions that you feel like you have to say yes to. But if it's something that's just not in your wheelhouse, like build me a Thrivecart portal or something, and you just go, I can't say no, you can say that's a more specialist skill. I'm happy to have a conversation about the fee for that, or it's just not in my wheelhouse, I'll find you someone who can. Here's my scope of work, just a reminder. That always allows you to kind of boundary expectations and scope of work between everybody.
And your scope of work can change too. If you decide like, okay, we're going to adjust, then you adjust that scope of work and you send it to them again and you make it really clear again. Like even as it changes, it's just like reminding them, okay, we have changed this, but this is still the expectations around this new scope of work. And I feel like it's expectations. Sorry, go Mel.
No, I was going to say, I think also there's a key point here. If someone is ever trying to, if you're working on a project fee, for instance, and someone's like, that's too expensive, the first thing you need to do is pull out some of the scope. We're not trying to reduce the fee to do the same amount of work. So that's the same with scope of work. If you're adding something in and you're on a set number of hours per month, chances are something's going to need to drop and deprioritize, or you're going to need to increase the number of hours per month with them to get that done as well. So don't be afraid of saying, I can add that. Here's what it looks like budget-wise, because I'll need a couple more hours a week to get onto that task for you. Is that okay? I can send you a refreshed contract.
Yes. It's remembering that as things adjust, we need to adjust our pricing and our and our hours. I think sometimes it can be really easy to say, I'll just take that on and not adjust appropriately for yourself.
Yeah.
And
you've got to
in a way, and in a way, like your business is your priority too. Like as much as VAs, we serve our clients and we do assist our clients, it is us that at the end of the day, we're the ones who we're supporting. So we need to make sure that
absolutely
we are doing the right thing for ourselves in our business before we serve the client. Because it's back to that.
You built this business for a reason.
Yes. And it's back to that whole, you don't want to burn out. And if you continue to do things for your clients that don't serve you and your business, you are more likely to burn out quickly. And I think I see it so often with new VAs, especially in that first 12 to 18 months, that burnout, because they're just almost people pleasing their clients, because they when you first start, you're so desperate. In a way, like it sounds terrible, but you're so desperate to get started and you're so excited and you're so desperate for that first client, second client. And I think it's so easy to just overwhelm and overload yourself so early on.
Yeah, massively. And I think one of the biggest contributors, I would say actually to that level of burnout is sliding scale pricing. You're not Costco, you don't get cheaper if someone buys more in bulk.
Yes.
It's not healthy to sort of say I'm maybe, £30, $30 an hour. But if you buy, above 20 hours, I'm going to actually charge you, 27 or 28 pounds or dollars an hour. Your skills don't lessen. In fact, the more you do stuff, the better you get at things. So actually your experience increases. So in order to try and sell more hours, why are you incentivizing a client? You are the skill that they need, full stop. You are good enough as you are. And so sliding scale, it doesn't allow you, but you're giving your client more hours of your time, but you're earning less money. Make that make sense for me. I never understand that. It's just, don't do it.
No. And don't do packages where the more hours that you do, like of the same service, it's the same thing. It's that sliding scale. The people who are like, well, if you buy this package with more services in it, you get it for less money. It doesn't make sense. You need to make sure that you are setting yourself up for financial success, like with your pricing. Too often we either price too low or, like you said, we go, okay, I'll do XYZ hours for you for less money. And it doesn't serve you at all. Really, it doesn't. It just, it drives me crazy.
No. Yeah, and I think also if you can, it's easier as you get a bit further in, but when you've got lots of itty-bitty clients as well, your 10-hour client takes up as much brain space as a 40-hour client. So if you can work your way to having more higher package clients, higher retainer clients, and start to phase out those little itty-bitty ones, or maybe bring an associate in to manage them, that's going to make your life easier, because otherwise your head is just a constant game of tennis around like 4 different courts trying to figure out how to serve so many clients. That's also a big contributor to burnout. It's just the sheer number of clients to bring in any kind of close to desired income. That can trip you up as well a lot.
Yes. The sooner that you can move your business to the point of having less clients but bulk hours. Like currently I have 3 clients that are my full-time hours as a VA. So that means like I'm still making the income that I want to make, but I don't have 8 clients to do the same yeah, it takes up
yeah,
so much brain space. It does. Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think there's one other thing as well is that whole retainer versus ad hoc hours conversation. And
Yes.
to just briefly explain the difference. So ad hoc hours, you tend to start with a client on the first of the month. You don't know roughly how many hours you're going to get through. You may set a rough limit with the client, but you'll kind of turn on your laptop, do the work, log the hours, be like, oh, I've done 4 hours today. The next day, they might not have anything. You're doing 2 hours. You're constantly in this. I need to pull more hours out of this client. Then you get to the end of the month and you bill the client. And you don't quite know whether you're going to hit 20 or 30 or 15. And you've got this, what's my income? How am I balancing my hours? I don't know. The better alternative is retainers. So they start on the first of the month. You discuss with them on the discovery call, and this gets easier the more clients you've had. You may be set, so in my business we have a 20-hour minimum buy-in. So if you're coming on board, I'm going to talk to you, and sure, I'll probably put you on 20 hours for 3 months. Within a month, I'll probably see whether that's accurate or whether you're sliding towards 30 hours is more appropriate, and we discuss. But you're locking them in. On the first of the month, you're billing them for the month ahead. So almost they're pre-buying a time bank with you of exactly set hours. Yes. You can plan your finances, you can plan your time, and your nervous system just takes a big fat sigh because it's less stressful. So that's ad hoc it wasn't a sustainable model for me. And as someone who was beginning to outsource to associates, I couldn't tell them how many. I was like, everyone's on a 0 hours contract. I don't know what work I'm going to have to give you. And then, chucking them little bits here and there wasn't a good structure for them either. So retainer models are more scalable and more maintainable for your sanity and your pockets.
Yes, absolutely. When I moved from like that ad hoc hours to retainer, it was a huge game changer. And I feel like too, you can better manage your time. Like when you know that you have this many hours this month,
massively.
And you can get your work done. And then the next month you come and the client might say, hey, this month I have a huge launch. We're going to need more hours. And you can have the ability to set that time aside and say, okay, I know in advance that I need to have more time for this client this month. How does that look with the rest of my clients? Can I take it on? Rather than them coming to you at the beginning of the month and going, I have this huge launch, and you have no way of like balancing that with everything else. And yes, it took me way longer than I would like to admit to go to retainers. I wish that I had, I was probably like 2.5 years, well and truly 2.5 years in before I was like, oh, retainers are a thing. What? Yes, it was it was game changer when this other VA was like, you're still doing hourly rate? And I was like, you're not? What are you doing? Tell me more. Like,
yeah, it's almost like a rite of passage, but now we've done it. This is why we have conversations like this, so that more people realise what not to do to do it better from the beginning.
Absolutely. I wish that there was like more of this conversation online. There's lots of information out there, but I don't think it's that real basic information that we need from the very beginning. Yeah. It's either like, this is what a VA does, and here's 50 services you can offer, or way far along where you're like years and years in and you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Client management is a whole thing in itself that I think took me so long to learn and get right. And I'm still like this year, a huge focus is on client retention and the things that make it from the day they get on that discovery call with you, that experience to getting there, to having the call, to onboarding with them. Like, what do they need to, have a really smooth process, to understand it, to have less questions, and to have this really smooth, painless experience that's better for them as well. It's still a learning curve. It's still always a work in progress to get it better.
Yes.
Oh, and the other thing I've got written down in my notes is don't roll over your hours.
No.
Controversial, but how the heck do you plan your... Like, honestly, this is why I have a minimum buy-in, because I know there is very rarely any clients of the kind that I take on that need less than 20 hours. That's kind of the baseline minimum for anybody at the level that my clients are very busy CEOs. And so I'm usually bolt hours on if they're like, oh, we're halfway through and we're at like 3/4 of the hours, and I just go, do you want to bolt 5 more hours on or 10? And they go, yeah, 1 or 2, whichever. And then you bolt it on, but we don't roll over hours. It's down to the VA to use them wisely, for them to be in constant communication so that they're getting work from the client, to find a flow. And if that consistently over 3 months, there is a bank of hours left, I'll have a conversation with the client and I'll reduce the contract, because I'm ethical and integral like that. I'm like, I'm not going to charge you consistently for what I can see you're not using. So if it's 2 months of there's like maybe 5 to 7 hours left over, I have a conversation and I say, shall we reduce it? And they say, no, actually, it's just been a quiet period. I'm happy to stay because I know that it holds your capacity and availability. So carry on as we are. If it's another 2 months of being under by 5, we'll have a chat. And so it's just a really honest way to communicate with the client, but don't roll over the hours. No, it's just not needed.
Don't roll them over. You booked me for those hours for that month. If you didn't give me enough work to do in that time, okay. And like you said, it's that constant checking with your clients and that communication. It is just so important to regularly communicate with your clients, and having almost a communication kind of like, I wouldn't say like list, but like, okay, when was the last time I checked in with this client about these things? Like how often, you need to know that at least once a month you're checking with your client about those specific topics and, that specific information, rather than that, day to day or week to week, oh, this is how that task is going. Oh, I need this from you. It's almost this set, like, okay, have we talked about pricing? Have we talked about our hours? Have we talked about what the expectations are for this upcoming month? Because your expectations might change for your client's expectations might change, and it's the virtual assistant's job to keep that communication line open. Like, our clients hire us because they're busy,
Yeah. And they also, I think they respect you checking in. You're not sitting there passively. I think that's the difference between what makes an average VA and a really good VA, is that you're very active with the client versus passive and a little bit scared of asking for help. Or I'm a different kind of person. I came from the music industry, so I can banter with anybody of whatever power or crazy levels they were at. I'd always be able to be like, that's not appropriate, or, so when it comes into clients, I'm like, why haven't you given me any work this week? What's going on? Like, you're wasting time here, or you're wasting a valuable expense and resource. Like, what have you got for me? And they go, oh, really sorry. Yeah, okay, no, you're quite right. Here's a bunch of stuff. I was like, stop trying to do it yourself. Please, That's what I'm here. So it's like being able to have a relationship with a client where you're like, I feel like you're holding back this week. Is everything okay? What more can I do? I can also do these things, And again, in your marketing as a VA, keep putting out stories of the things that you do for clients. That's one of the biggest things I think has got traction for me on LinkedIn, is showing what I'm doing, whether it's like one of my team is, booking a personal trip for a client. Like, we do that as well, because my business, we take this whole human approach. While we're predominantly business admin, they need the lifestyle support as well. So we'll tell a story on LinkedIn of like, we booked a helicopter over a volcano in Sicily, and then they wanted to scuba dive under it as well. So we arranged all of that, and like end-to-end details were done. They didn't have to think about anything. They got an itinerary, they turned up. And you've got someone on LinkedIn going, oh my God, I need this in my life. So, when you're marketing, tell stories of the things that you do for your clients. Even if it's like, I got his inbox down to 0. There were 5 flagged items. So when he got off the plane or out of his meeting, he knew exactly what to focus on. And those things got answered. He stopped being the silo in his business. Happy days. So like, tell stories about the things that you do, because that's much more descriptive to show like behind the paywall of what being a VA is actually like. Gives people examples they can see themselves in, and they go, I need a VA. Yes. Okay, I'm going to talk to this person.
That like sharing that like real person perspective. I think sometimes for business owners who are looking for VAs, they don't understand what VAs can actually do for them, especially businesses who have never hired anyone before. They just have no idea. So they might come to you with this list of jobs, and actually none of them are what they need help with. Like, it's that, it's a learning curve for both sides. But I feel like sharing those real life stories really helps people to go, oh, that is actually the task I need help with, like, rather than this list of things they think they need help with.
Or saying 20 hours of admin support a month. You're like, cool, but what does that practically look like for me? Because I'm a busy business owner. What is that? What are you going to take off my plate? What aren't you going to take off my plate? How does that work? How do we speak? Like, tell them everything. Yes. You have to think about, they just don't even understand that a VA is a part-time remote PA or EA. It's like, break it down. Make it really easy for them to understand what it is and why they need you. And then paint these real pictures of what it looks like working with you. You know, share client testimonials and case studies, and, you know, when you're sharing details, obviously use client anonymous client testimonials. I can't say the word. Share things with discretion and protect your clients if you're using examples. So don't use names, because obviously confidentiality is a big part of what we do.
Yes.
But testimonials and things like that, get them. Don't be afraid to get them and share them, because that's also really big.
Yes. And like when you get to that point of having those testimonials, please use them. I think in the beginning I had them, but I was so nervous about sharing them and putting them out there and having people, you know, think I was weird. And now I'm just like, oh, smash them up every day. Look what I did for this client.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yes.
I always say, like, we're not saving lives, but we're changing them.
Yes.
We're definitely changing lives. You know, like some of my chiefs and CEOs, you know, it's 30 to 40 hours they've got back. One of them said to me, I'm closing my laptop after dinner. I'm actually being able to have dinner with my kids, and my partner's not giving me the side eye because I'm back on the laptop after dinner. He's like, I've just sent my VA a bunch of stuff, know that it's going to be handled when she gets up, and I can be present with my loved ones. And that to me is like the sweetest, best testimonial ever, because that's what you're giving your clients. So not saving lives, but we're definitely changing them for the better.
Oh, absolutely. And I think sometimes it can be really hard as a VA to feel appreciated for your work. Like, not that our clients don't tell us we're appreciated, but sometimes when we're doing all the little mini jobs, it can feel really hard to feel like we're achieving things. Sometimes we as VAs need to take a second to go, actually, I've helped this person get time back with their family, or grow to that next step in their business that they had bottlenecked on and they were stuck on. Yeah, and I think sometimes that can be really difficult to take a second to just focus on what you really do for your clients too.
Yeah, definitely. If you're running 90 miles an hour doing all these things, but you're not having regular check-ins where you can say to your client, like, how is this relationship going for you? Is there anything I can do differently? And usually they'll say, oh my God, no, it's amazing. Sorry, God, I'm so busy. I haven't even thought about, like, you've been a life changer and la, la, la. And then you kind of get that. But it's down to having communication, having check-in forms. Every 3 months I send my clients one. Most of them ignore it because they're just happy and they're quiet now, and that's great. And my team are just incredible. And that's wonderful. And sometimes they'll be like, oh yeah, I mean to give you gushing feedback, here you go. And you're like, amazing. And then you stick that on LinkedIn or wherever you do your marketing, and then you get more client inquiries, because, you know, people need social proof. It's a thing.
Yes, they do. That social proof is so important. And I think it can be really tricky as a new VA especially to feel like you have to be on all of the social medias. I think it's really important to take some time and think about where your ideal client is. Like, for example, obviously for you, with big busy CEOs, it's LinkedIn for you. And then for my ideal client, I work specifically with women who were teachers, who run teacher-owned businesses, and majority of them are on Instagram and Facebook. Like, it's a very different area of expertise. And so when you are thinking about your marketing, you need to be where your client is, you know, not just where you feel most confident.
Spread yourself too thin.
Yes. Don't.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to be everywhere.
No, and you just have to commit to showing up consistently, because that's also one of the things that, you know, you can probably see a lot in your business as well, is I'm booked up, therefore I don't do marketing. And then clients leaving unexpectedly or ending the contract or feels complete in whatever we've done for them. And then you have a hole and you haven't done any marketing for 3 months. So you're back on, like, grind the wheel to get it in motion again for marketing. So just also planning in time in your business, to be honest, should be the first thing as a VA that you get to every day before you do client work.
Yes.
If you can spend half an hour every day, whether it's updating your bookkeeping for yourself or doing a bit of marketing or tidying up some processes, do that first, because then it can't be ignored. Do you know what I mean? Like, you should come first before your clients, otherwise you won't have a business. So even if it's half an hour a day or 3 times a week, just to spend on your own business doing marketing, and then you won't be in a, like, feast or famine cycle. And
that took me a long time to learn. Like, I would prioritize all of my client work, get it done, and then I'd be like, oh my gosh, like, I haven't done anything, or I haven't responded to my own emails, and I just flipped my day. So I have a rule that the first hour of my day is doing my own business work, and I don't start any client work until after that first hour. And look, I didn't get there straight away. And I definitely had weeks where I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm doing my own work for the first hour. And then I'd get to Thursday and be like, oh, I've done nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. But it's like one of those things that you really need to get to at some point, like creating that rhythm for your own business and making sure those things are done. Because like you said, if you don't focus on your business, there is no business.
Yeah, marketing and sales is non-negotiable. Absolute non-negotiable.
Yes. And well, obviously now you have the agency, so you don't have a wait list because you have your agency. But before you had the agency, did you have a wait list?
Oh gosh, before I had associates, all those lovely leads on the table where I was fully booked just went cold. I didn't have a process back then. I was a year into the business. I was like, I don't know what to do. And now, obviously, for me, it was hiring associates. And I think before, if I'd have done things differently, yes, I would have absolutely had a wait list, or at least had the discovery calls and just kept those clients kind of in my, network and near. But yeah, now obviously I've got teams, so I'm constantly interviewing associates to, have people on hand should my team be capped out and I need more team than clients are coming in.
Yes.
And I've got people on the peripheral.
Yeah. I currently have a wait list. Not that I think that I'll be taking on any new clients anytime soon, but I just keep a little, I have a little email I send out and I'm like, currently I'm booked out, but, I'll reach out to you. And then I just have it's so basic. It's like a spreadsheet that's like 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like they message me first, so I'll message them first.
No, that's a lead tracker. That's the best thing you can have. Honestly, a lead tracker is... I said this to a client a long time ago, actually. She was feeling really down as a coaching client. She was feeling really down VA about the fact that, there's been no new inquiries or anything. And so I went and made her create a lead tracker. And then she looked at everybody who was either in her DMs or her LinkedIn DMs or wherever she was finding clients, and people that had inquired or had a discovery call and hadn't converted. She put them all in a spreadsheet, and the next day she looked at it and went, oh, I have leads. And I was like, so what's the plan? How are we going to contact them, and what are we going to do? And that was it. She shook the tree and a client fell out. And having a lead tracker is so important because not only does it make you I think it gives you a little bit of hope as well, that it's not all just white noise you're just talking into a void when you're marketing. There are actually people that already are interested, but you just don't have them in your vision at all. But when you've got a lead tracker, simple as a spreadsheet, it makes such a difference to your mindset. You can go, oh, actually, that reminds me, I can reach out to that person because, it's been a couple of weeks, so let me just check in.
Yes.
Easy.
Absolutely. And you would be surprised how often someone goes, oh, I'm looking for a VA. They reach out to you and then they do nothing. And you can reach out to them a month later and they're like, oh yeah, I'm still looking for a VA. Absolutely. And you're like, I would have thought you would have been cold by now, but you're sitting right there waiting for me.
Follow up is everything. And this is an important one, I think, for anybody who's sort of in their first year or two. The follow-up is everything. You are not pushy. You have a solution to a problem they're experiencing that you can solve. So you're not trying to sell them some cheap tat, off eBay. It's very different. You've actually got a solution to give them and you want to help them.
Yes.
When you think about it through that lens, you're just following up. And I get to sort of maybe 3 follow-ups, and the 4th message I might send is, I'm just going to let you know, it's my last check-in. So, if you do, want to consider working together, absolutely let me know. Otherwise, I won't contact you again.
Yes.
And they go, oh, no, I need that call. Actually, yeah. So, follow up a handful of times because it's worth it. There are clients for me that have come back a year later after a discovery call that didn't convert. So, and I still follow up with them, or they see my marketing, or, so follow up is everything. Please don't feel like you're being pushy. You're actually trying to help them.
Exactly. And I think too, what we forget is 90% of these people are already at capacity in their business. That's why they're looking for somebody. And so they might have missed, they might have opened that first email, been like, I'm going to respond to it, and then closed out of it. And then the second email and the third email and then the 4th email, they're like, oh my gosh, I still haven't replied. And they finally get to it. And I see it all the time.
Such a good point.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just that, that communication. You're not being pushy. You're not being over the top. Most of them need that 2nd, 3rd, 4th reminder because they just, they miss the first one. They do. And I think I've even got to that point sometimes where people message me and they're like, hey, we were gonna, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember we were gonna do that thing. Let's do that.
So
yes. And
so true. I'm looking at my client roster in front of me and I think, God, one of them was like, yes, let's book a call. Sent them my link. Week later, nothing. Follow up. 2 weeks later, not booked that call. Oh, sorry, I've been meaning to. At the third follow up, they responded. And then they didn't book the call. And at the fourth follow up, we're coming up to 4 weeks. I'm like, are you interested? Oh, yeah, booked it. So sometimes even to like the interest to the discovery call with my lot, like 6 and 7 figure business owners, they are exactly how you describe. They're like, crap, so busy. I'll get to that. It keeps being forgotten.
Yes.
And you being the person that bothers puts you top of the pile for them.
Absolutely. And I think most business owners don't see it as bothersome. They see it as like, this is what you're going to be like for me when we're working together too. Like oftentimes it's kind of like a precursor for when you actually get to the point of working together. So yes,
exactly.
And I think that's something we need to remember, because oftentimes we think we're being pushy or over the top when really our clients are going, thank God. Thank God you followed up. I forgot that we were doing 100%. That. Yes. So
so good.
Oh, yes. Well, that brings us to the end of the episode, because we have been chatting for ages and I feel like it was just another wonderful chat. I'm so glad that we could record again. But before we go, Mel, please share with everybody where they can find you.
So if you are interested in the agency or working with me as an associate, I work with people in the UK or plus 1 to 2 hour time zone. So you can always apply to be associates with me. And all the links are in my Instagram at Mel the Biz Coach. And that's also where you find me if you're interested in coaching. I'm doing intensives at the moment. And the agency is just thelifestyleva.net if you want to have a little nosy at my website about everything I offer as a VA agency.
And you also have your mastermind, which you have started to, which
yes.
I was like, you didn't mention it.
I forgot about the mastermind. Courage to Lead the Mastermind. Yeah, it's coming back in. We open the doors for the second round of that in April, and it really is a very small and intimate space for service providers and coaches who are really looking to embody their leadership to grow a sustainable and scalable business, to 6 figures and beyond in the next 12 months. So yes, that will be relaunching again in April. Everything's on my Instagram at Mel the Biz Coach. You can come and have a nosy about that as well.
Yes, go and check out Mel's reels. I love them. I've like your new reels come up and I'm like, oh, what's this one about? So I get very excited. I've like cut my following on Instagram down. And so then I'm like, oh, I'm really interested. Like, yeah, it's so good. But anyways, thank you so much for coming on, Mel. I had such a lovely time.
And that brings us to the end of another episode. I hope you've enjoyed diving into the fundamentals of the virtual assistant world with me today. If you found value in our discussion and want to connect further, remember you can join our community on Facebook. Just search the basics for virtual assistants and we can continue the conversation there. For more behind the scenes content, tips and updates, you can also find me on Instagram and TikTok. Follow me at the Basics for VAs podcast for bite-sized insight and a glimpse into the VA world. I'm thrilled you tuned in, and if you have any questions or specific topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, feel free to drop a message. Your feedback is invaluable. Until next time, keep thriving in your virtual assistant realm, and I'll catch you in the next episode.